Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to another episode of Trudge Report. This is a recovery-based podcast, but don't worry. If you're not sober or not ready to be sober or look like they just got out of jail like Corey, we talk about plenty of other things, including sports, trending topics, and a good bit of nonsense. My name is Sean, and I am your host. I'm joined by my good friends and fellow trudgers. Please remember to listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Our videos will still be posted each week, so you can watch episodes on YouTube and Facebook. But as always, please be sure to download on your listening platforms. Remember to like and subscribe on all social media outlets with the handle @Trudge Report Pod. We are brought to you by Stella Mix Podcast Management and our wonderful producer and editor, Miss Janine Stella. Gentlemen, good evening. Happy recording Monday. It's been, it feels like it's been a minute, although our listeners wouldn't know it because episodes are still coming out, but it does feel like it's been a minute. Let's go around the horn on my screen. Mr. G.A. Phillips, good evening. How are you? How are things in the great Midwest?
Things are good, man. Things are heating up. Summertime, baby. Coming off a nice Father's Day. Hope all three of you gentlemen enjoyed your day, along with all the other dads out there. We had a nice fun weekend around here. Gearing up to head to Mumford & Sons on Wednesday night, so concert season continues. So that ought to be fun. And yeah, man, just trudging on, loving life, all that fun stuff.
Good stuff. Bill, I got you next on my screen. How you doing, bud?
Great, man. Great Father's Day. Had a pedicure with my daughter. Well, I woke up to breakfast, which was Fruity Pebbles.
Nice.
A little bit of milk spilled everywhere. And a beautiful card with coupons where she said, you know, turn in this coupon, she'll make my bed, clean my room. So I'm holding on to them puppies. And then she wanted, we went and got a pedicure. She told me she wanted to get baptized. That's the best Father's Day present, probably, except for when I got home. She's like, so are we going to go to dinner? I want to go here. And I'm like, man, you're quite the planner these days. And she goes, you know, Dad, you did it for me when I didn't want to go anywhere and I didn't want to do anything. You got me out of my shell, and now I love going out. So I'm doing it for you. And that was all I really need to hear as a father. So that was fantastic. I can't ask for anything better. Going to Italy this weekend, so that'll be fun. So yeah, it's an exciting time. Plus launching a company, that's been a lot of fun too. So yeah, life's good and busy.
You gonna go hang out with the Pope, dude?
Nope, not gonna hang out with the Pope. I'm gonna hang out with my ancestors in Lucca, and my great 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 grandmother modeled for the statue in front of the biggest church in Lucca in the city wall. They actually pray to this church, to this statue for miracles and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go and visit her, and I have some other family members that are going to be over there as well. So it's going to be a hell of a time, man. Yep.
Uncle Henry and all them?
You know it, man. The self-proclaimed mayor of Lucca will be in the building, in the town.
Very cool.
So, yeah, looking forward to that.
That's awesome. Safe travels on that. That'll be fun. Make sure you bring some pictures back for the coming episodes and stuff like that.
I'm going to pray that Corey, for a miracle, that he breaks his curmudgeon ways.
Oh, that really would be a miracle.
We're going to see if it's real, if the miracles are really true.
The thing is, nobody even wants that, really. You guys like me right where I'm at.
Yeah, we're not sure we would like a nice Corey.
Right under your thumbs.
It's like, be careful what you wish for, one of those deals, huh? Yep. You might be right.
Oh, Corey's miserable. We should help him. Bullshit. Nobody gives a fuck.
Let's just feed into it.
Exactly.
Well, that's a good segue into how you were doing, Corey. How are things in the Michener household? How was your Father's Day? What's going on?
I was fine before this. It's fine, dude. Bill, I want a whole pizza brought back to me. A real pizza. I think that comes from there.
I actually think that's like the last bit of real Italian food they would eat.
Well, I just figured like lasagna would travel difficult. I don't know.
And pizza wouldn't?
Yeah.
No. I actually believe that pizza is more traditional Italian than lasagna, but I'm not sure about it. But yeah.
That you said it. That's fact.
I'm with you. Pizza for you.
Yeah. I'm good. I started at the beginning of this year, I said that I was going to do a few goals this year in 2025. and I've begun to make some progress on some of them.
Nice.
I've bought almost everything I need to start recording again, which is something I haven't done in 10 years.
That's awesome.
10 years. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see. I told my wife, I said, there's a solid chance that I just record shit that I want to record just so I can throw in my AirPods and listen to it. And that's all it ever does.
Good.
And none of you ever see it. Maybe it will.
Well, I would love to hear it someday, Corey, because I happen to think, despite what you think of yourself and all the fun we make of you, that you're a pretty talented musician. And I think that would be pretty cool.
Thanks. Hey, on another note, real quick, speaking of Father's Day or whatever, I just have a question. Do you guys ever feel like not adults? Do you ever feel like, you ever have like a moment where you're like, how do I even have kids right now? Like, I'm not grown up for this. Like, who let me do this? I feel like I feel that way. I feel like an imposter sometimes. It's like it's imposter syndrome. And I only bring this up because I called my dad to wish him a happy Father's Day, and then somehow made the phone call about myself feeling like an imposter. So, I was just wondering if anybody ever feels like that. Like, because you guys seem like some like adults. I don't feel like an adult. I feel like I would go to any of you guys for like adult advice, and I would not advise you guys to come to me for adult advice unless it had to do with like accounting.
I don't know if I ever don't feel like an adult or like not a father, but there are some times where I definitely wouldn't want my kids to hear the conversations I partake in. Not even that they're that like really bad or off color or whatever, but just like there's times where I definitely revert back to like, little giggly boy where, farting is funny and this is funny, like that kind of thing. But I don't know if I ever feel like not an adult. I don't know. Maybe I haven't really put that. You know what, Corey? It's a good question. I haven't really put much thought into that.
I just feel like I moved to Florida like yesterday and I'm 19 still sometimes. And I'm like,
yeah.
I think that's just a good sign that you're human, man. Like I think all of us kind of, I'm a grown up, but yeah, I look back for a second and I'm like, where'd all that time go? And, I'm still just like a 16-year-old all over again. So yeah, I think
I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Feeling like a kid at times or feeling, young, I guess, still.
Sorry to make this weird, guys.
No. And no, because I was, every time that I think I'm like, oh, this is something new that some new kind of adult challenge that comes along, and I've never done anything like this before, or I don't know what to do or how to navigate it. I just remind myself like nobody else did either. Nobody else. We all just kind of figured it out as we went.
I just noticed your shirt too, Greg. Very nice.
This was a gift from Peyton.
For those who will never watch this episode and only listen, Greg's shirt says "Stepped Up Dad," meaning stepdad, like stepped up dad.
And it's like cool. It's personalized at the bottom, so
nice.
Yeah, it's like a definition type shirt. So yeah, shout out to Peyton. Very, very heartwarming.
That's very cool.
Thank God it doesn't say like stepped on, like how they like step on cocaine every time it gets sold.
No,
step on it.
That is good that it doesn't say it.
No.
My guys, you want to know what I did for Father's Day? Well, it was actually
a
4-day trip. I went on a golf trip with my buddies. I played 108 holes of golf in 73 hours. And it was the most glorious 73 hours I've had in a very long time. It was phenomenal.
Dude, I'm happy for you.
It was fun, dude. It was a lot of fun. We went up with I went with my dad and 6 other buddies who all of you either know that all the buddies or have met them or have heard about them. They're all in recovery. And we had 2 suites at this resort in Tampa, and it's actually Palm Harbor, a little north of Tampa, right on the water. And it was a fantastic trip. We played a crap ton of golf, and we found a little time in between to eat and sleep. Eat at some really good restaurants, sleep a little bit. And the cool part was, like, honestly, the golf was a blast. But to your point, Corey, what you were just talking about, and this is what I was referencing, like every night we either watched the hockey game one night, the basketball game another night, and then the hockey game. And we were just all hanging out in one of the rooms, my dad included, like telling the most obscene jokes or, just like truly being like kids again, immature adults. And so to that point, I guess, I do in some level, but I think that's a good thing, like ultimately, that's a good thing.
I don't even know if I conveyed that because I don't convey much well, to be honest with my words.
Get what you were saying.
But like the other day, I took Lucy to ballet, and there was another dad there that we're like acquaintances with or whatever. And
that was probably an awkward conversation.
No, well, here's the thing. I didn't talk to him, right? so later, Gabby asked me, she's like, "Did you talk to so and so?" And I was like, "Well, no." And and I was like, "I don't know." He was on the phone a bunch or whatever. And she's like, "Well, they did just buy a boat." And I was like, "Oh, nice. I want an invite on that thing." And she's like, "Well, you got to talk to him." And I was like, yeah, but what are we going to talk about? Like, okay, let's talk about this boat. And all I can sit there and say is, yeah, my dad used to have a boat, like a fucking child. To like, you know what I mean? Like that's, I don't know. Not that I need a boat to be an adult, but like, I don't know how to do this thing. I don't know.
You should pretend that you used to have a boat, and you just fake your way into it. Fake it till you make it.
That's true. I drove a boat once.
I've captained many vessels. Something like that.
Corey's having an existential crisis over here about life in general.
Dude, I just hope I turned 30 this year, and I just hope it starts to die down after that. I don't know.
No,
you are still pretty young, my friend. So I do, and I'm not even trying to be funny or joke, but like I get it,
Okay, and lastly, just a quick shout out, and then I'll shut up, and we can just do whatever we're gonna do for the rest of this thing. I'm going to Jersey on Friday. I'm going to Jersey, and
not quite Italy, but cool.
Not Italy. Still has pizza and lasagna, I think. But
there's some Italians that live in Jersey for sure.
I know a few.
Tony Soprano for one. Tell Tony I said what's up.
All right, Tony.
I have an in-law that went to high school with him.
The actor?
The actor, yes. What's his name?
James Gandolfini.
That's right.
Gandolfini.
Come on.
Yeah, I don't watch that, Greg. I don't watch that.
Oh, that's a great.
That was a
classic.
Good
one, I know.
We really should do some like either deep dives in some of those classic shows or just an episode where we just like talk briefly about like you mentioned Sons of Anarchy earlier, Corey. I think before we started recording.
Underrated.
That's a great show too. Like great phenomenal show.
Dude, I could spend 3-4 hours talking about how intelligent and intricate Breaking Bad's whole.
And you know what? That's one I've never seen.
Oh,
hey,
dude.
I've never seen it.
If you guys ever hijack something I'm going to say ever again, you're all going to pay the consequences.
Our apologies.
I just wanted to say that I'm going up for my buddy's celebration of life. So shout out to Slappy McGee again for unfortunately passing away in March. But getting up there, seeing some old friends and whatever, and should be a good time. Also hanging out with my dad and my Uncle Bill and hopefully winning some money at a casino.
Get some boat tips from your dad so you can talk to this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll update you guys on if I say anything to him.
Mm-hmm. To your dad?
I probably will talk to my dad.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Very good. What else? Anybody got anything else cooking on that they want to talk about real quick before we get into our main event? Anything going on? You've been watching the hockey? The hockey's been wild, man.
A little bit. It is nuts, dude, isn't it?
It's just great. Just great.
I was mixed up on how many games were played the other night. I thought Florida was about to win the cup. And I thought, like when Travis and Taylor Swift were at the game, I thought they were about to win the cup, and turns out, no.
He looked weird. I didn't even realize that was him at first. At first, I thought she was there with somebody else.
That'd have been cool.
But yeah, hockey's been good. Basketball on tonight. Game 5 on tonight. Basketball's been really good too. Man,
it has. You know what? I can't though. I don't. I realize the irony of sitting here and saying that I don't take the Pacers as a legitimate threat. Not only did they knock off my team, but they're tied up in the NBA Finals. But I will say when they're on and they're having their nights, dude, they cannot miss. It's crazy how scrappy they are.
Yep. And you could say it can't last, but it kind of has lasted. Like
it has.
Who's to say it can't last 2 more games?
No,
their
I'm not.
Defense has been great too.
I'm not. Now, I'll give the guys props, especially for this playoff run. I'm not as big on Halliburton as
me
everybody
neither.
else is. You know what I'm
I
saying?
don't really like him at all.
The thing is again, and kind of, you know, to the team as well, but certainly with Halliburton, is the nights where he is on, dude. I mean, he looks like Steph. He can't miss from anywhere on the floor. It's crazy. But then when they lock him down, you know, that's definitely the key to winning the game. But
Oklahoma City still should theoretically win, but I don't know, man. After they won, it wasn't even game one because Oklahoma City let that get away. But when they won game 3, Indiana did, and totally just shut Oklahoma City down. I was like, yeah, these guys are for real. So
Pacers have not lost back-to-back games in like 3 months.
Neither has Oklahoma City. So it's just kind of one of those things. And if you do that math, Indiana gets to 7 before Oklahoma City does, if the math stays true, which is kind of wild. So watch this space for sure. So, all right. Our recovery topic tonight and our main topic is the topic of triggers. And I'm actually going to kick this to Corey first because this was Corey's idea. You knew that was coming, but
did not.
But I also want to blend this into another semi topic as well. So triggers, and we'll explain kind of what that is, but also like recovery myth busters too, like certain things that we heard, we still hear that are just simply not true, or it could be something that is true, or something that has, like for me, there were some things that had a lot of what I felt truth or impact early in my recovery. And then the longer I stayed sober, I was like, yeah, that's kind of bullshit, but it helped me early on. So Corey, would you like to explain to the audience triggers, the topic of triggers, and what we're going to talk about tonight?
I would, Sean. I would.
This should be seamless.
There's going to be a lot of big empty seams. So first off, if you ask Google what a trigger is when we're talking in reference to recovery, it says that triggers are often some sort of internal or external stimulus that causes the former addict to desire to use drugs or alcohol again. So I didn't even think internal. When I think triggers and triggers list or whatever, I'm usually thinking external for some reason. Because I've been to treatment, I guess, is probably why. Because we could talk about internal conditions that will lead you back to the drink or drug, and I'm sure we will. But, yeah, I mean, the background here is that, like I said, I've been to treatment a few times, and that is mainly where you're going to hear about triggers. And I mean, in every treatment center, I had a therapist or some sort of group facilitator that was asking me to write a triggers list, things that I thought would push me to a drink or a drug, or trigger me to have the thought or whatever. And I personally, I can't remember if I ever actually bought that or not, and I'm not even sitting here saying that it's complete bullshit. It's, in my opinion, it's kind of mostly bullshit, but we're going to get into it. But I wanted to ask you guys a couple little questions for you three. Do you have a similar experience in that? I know we haven't all been to treatment, but like, do you now, or have you ever believed that you had triggers that caused you to use or drink alcohol? Anybody can go.
Absolutely. When I was drinking alcohol and when I was getting high, 100%. Now we could sit here in hindsight and look back and say, well, anything could have been a trigger. And yeah, like I was never short of an excuse to go get drunk or go get high. But certain things, like working in the restaurant industry, a rough night at work, like everybody's going out, wanting to be part of whatever. Certain, you get in a fight with your girlfriend or whatever. And it was like, not necessarily, again, did I need the excuse? Absolutely not. But like, that was definitely more of a, something patting me on the back saying, hey buddy, you deserve an extra special evening, an extra special bender this weekend. So yeah, absolutely. The mind plays weird, crazy psychological tricks on you,
Mm-hmm. Sean, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that I am, I think I'm unique to this, four of us in the sense that I've never been to treatment. In that sense, I'm definitely not unique in my alcoholism, but I don't think I ever even heard the term triggers or what it meant until I got to recovery. And it wasn't, and unfortunately, which we'll get into, I'm sure, I heard it in the rooms of recovery, where Corey, you were insinuating that you heard it in treatment, which I've also learned that over the years too, that many people, that's pretty much where a lot of people learn it from. So I never really thought, I didn't like, it was never really on my mind. And kind of to Greg's point, like I never needed an excuse. I personally, I know we can get kind of semantical about this, but I don't think I believe in them in the sense that the treatment industry or the common usage of the word trigger is being used. To Greg's point, right? Long night at the restaurant industry, fight with the girlfriend or whatever, or celebration, something's kind of in there. I think that is to something that we just said a little earlier. I think that's actually more to the internal condition of a which I think Greg was kind of getting at, that, it's not like I'm completely free of drugs and alcohol. The obsession is gone. Life is great. And then kind of like some of those weird movies where like they hear a ding of a bell and they just go, and they like, I don't believe in triggers in that sense. And I know we probably get into it, but our good friend, rest in peace, Brian Beatty, and a bunch of other people, he used to have this thing was like, yo, did you ever drink at night? He was like, yeah, well then you got to stay away from the nighttime. Did you ever drink with family? Yeah, well, can't see those family again. They might trigger you. You know what I mean? Did you ever drink or get high sitting on a couch? Well, got to stay away from all couches now. And obviously he was being funny, but like it made so much sense to me. Like if we want to see triggers, they're everywhere. It's kind of like the God conversation. If I want to see God in a situation, if I want to see good or God in a situation, I will find it. Or if I completely want to be like, no, it can't be, it's got to be this. Oh my goodness, this is happening again. Then I think we can look at it that way. But I think it's an internal thing more than anything.
Bill, were you ever looking around for triggers, trying to stay away from stuff, or what?
You're saying in my, like back in the day?
I would say, I guess I didn't really see. I told you I wasn't going to convey this well, but okay. I would say, like, have you ever like, let's say like we're trying to achieve sobriety, where you was the triggers list a part of your program? You know what I mean? Were you trying to stay away from people, places, and things?
Yeah, peoples and places and things, and triggering parts of my sobriety whenever I was trying to have sobriety. I would say my mind always manifested any excuse. Mm-hmm. I could go up and down the ladder to which ones were valid and what your perception of what would be in it. Oh, well, he should drink over that. Or he shouldn't. Well, how could someone drink over, spilling milk, or whatever, or damn, his parent just died. This is for anybody, but I could find any of those reasons to drink. Of course, it wasn't until in addiction and recovery attempts that I learned about my addiction, that I had a body that could not handle the substances, but I also had that part in my mind that always manifested the excuse to put it back into my body to re-trigger that, which I know all you guys know, but some listeners might not know, because the real other side of that is never ran into a reason to drink. I've never seen enough stress to drink. and I mean not just me, for anybody. I think I've seen people get through almost anything I can imagine now if they're in a good condition, and for me today, the thing that you're talking about, the bell ring, that's Pavlov's dog, and the bell rings and the dog salivates, right? They put food in front of the dog, they ring the bell, they put food in front of the dog begins to salivate when the bell rings because he thinks the food's coming, right? Well, at the end of the experiment, they remove the food, they just ring the bell, dog's foaming at the mouth, right? Now, I'm not telling you that I can't go and watch some specific movie scene and have that like 3 seconds of romanticizing, you know, like, and I'm like, damn, you know. And I remember 2 years after quitting cigarettes, seeing a guy smoking like a cigarette coming out of the store. I'm like, man, I'm about to go ask him for one. And then I'm like, what are you thinking right now, you know? Right. So over time it dissipates, and to me, I don't want to say I never have a trigger, because who knows, but rare event. But I think a lot of us on this show specifically, we look at life a little differently now. We don't see so much of alcohol and drugs as a good thing or a good time, because we know at the end of the day, what good time or not, I can't handle it. And on the flip side of that, I've been to Punta Cana at wild parties and this and that, and I've never wanted to drink. I'm not saying to go do that kind of stuff. I'm just saying that's where life took me. And I remember I was in Dominican Republic, and this guy, I was being funny, making everyone, they kept trying to hand me this bottle, you know, here. And I'm like, no, you know, finally I'm like, I don't drink. And they're like, we thought you were the drunkest guy here, you know? So, the truth is I was having more fun doing that than I ever had drinking, because I didn't remember what happened ever when I was drinking. The other truth is I always find a trivial excuse to drink again if I don't understand the problem, and couple it with a relationship with God to help me heal.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So the first treatment center I went to for one night, because it's kind of a long story, but I happened to not have a drug in my system when I entered that treatment center. It was really weird. It was like a weird overlap with probation and getting into the treatment center, to where like I couldn't use that week, and the things I was using got out of your system pretty quickly and whatever.
Like, so you're not high enough.
Exactly. I went to the treatment center, and I did.
You don't have a problem, sir.
I did use something right before, because I realized like I'm gonna get booted out of here,
which is a wild concept, by the way.
Right? Yeah. Well, and that's what happened, and obviously I pissed clean, and my insurance was like, absolutely not, is he staying there, and they booted me the next day. But I had a decent meal that night. But anyway, the nurse that was doing like my exit, the last thing I remember her telling me was like, all I can say is people, places, and things, you know, stay away from those old people you used to use with, you know, where you used with, whatever. And I really don't remember if I bought it or not, but the fact is, like, my triggers list throughout all of my treatment runs or whatever, like, it included the same things. It included like the members of my band, well, some of the members of my band, which I always include that in, like, when I not always, but sometimes I include that when I like get to tell my story or whatever about how I tried to get the band back together and ended up smoking crack. You know,
but do you think you tried to get the band back together to smoke crack? That's the question.
That's the thing. My mental condition at the time, my mental condition at the time, my internal condition at the time, the fact that I had no defense against the fucking crack pipe.
Like, you knew somewhere inside of you, you're like, this is going to end in me smoking crack.
Nothing was telling me not to hang out with the two dudes that were still smoking crack. You know what I mean? Like, and it was like wrapped up in this guise of like, we're going to get the band back together and this is going to be awesome. Right. And we're going to be like, you know, the 20th best band in Salem County, New Jersey. And whatever.
You're like, this guy's a young Mick Jagger. This one's a young Ozzy. Like, this is a lock. Like, we got this.
Not quite, but you know. But yeah, no, that's exactly right. Like, it was all about my internal condition. It wasn't the fact that I got around people that happened to be using. If I walked past somebody smoking crack today, I'd be like, holy shit, you should go do that, like, not on the street. You know what I mean? That's crazy. And I'd probably just keep it moving. And I'd probably tell you guys, like, dude, somebody's just smoking crack. Actually, we did, Greg, in Seattle.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you're describing Seattle all day long.
Yeah, and we could look at that with a little bit of sadness and a little bit of levity and be like, wow, and, you know, maybe even some gratitude, you know, that kind of stuff. That's like my normal reaction to, like, being around drugs today. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes at concerts. Therapists and not even just therapists. I can't even blame the treatment industry on this entirely, as much as I may want to. But like, some people would tell us that we have a bunch of things that we shouldn't be able to do because we're in recovery. And like, there's some common sense about it all. Like I said, like, you're not going to catch me hanging out in the crack house today or something like that. But I've been in plenty of bars. I always had a reason for being there. I was always in pretty good spiritual condition. Whether it was playing pool, playing pool with a bunch of other sober people. I happen to be engulfed in, like, a bunch of, like, a group of sober people. So most of the time I'm doing things with sober people, right? But I always had a reason to do so. I was never, like, trying to, like, test the waters or anything like that. And I've been pretty authentic in my recovery, right? So, like, the fundamental idea of triggers hasn't been a thing. I was saying earlier, like, if triggers had to play a part in my recovery program, and I do want to preface this with, if you're early in recovery, it may not be a good idea to be around certain.
And I think that's a really good point. I think that's a really good point. There are certain things and places and people that we should probably stay away from, especially in early sobriety, or until, as our literature says, we're spiritually fit enough to go there. And then it becomes to, like you said, do I even have good reason for going?
Right. Like, yeah, we want you to get to a certain, we want you to have a spiritual awakening, really, before you start going down those roads. And like, that's why, like, in our whole process that we've outlined many times, like, amends isn't like the first thing you go do, I mean, that's not only why, but imagine if it was, like, if I had to go back to New Jersey and make amends to the underworld.
Right.
And, but I had no grasp on this spiritual way of life. But yeah, dude, like I was just saying, like, my triggers list were like Camden, New Jersey, certain members of my family or whatever, like I said, like the band, whatever. I've gotten to make amends to a lot of those people that I considered triggers. I got to go to court in Camden, New Jersey. I was even unsupervised for a lot of that. You know what I mean? So, like, the highway. I used to think the highway, like, and to be honest, there was a little bit of data behind it, because getting on 295 North to go to Camden, I would feel something in the pit of my stomach when I got on the highway, right? And it's because
I'd get less sick. Like, if I was, I'd be feeling good. I'm like, all right,
absolutely,
right.
The exit couldn't come quick enough,
That's how, powerful the mind is, right? The obsession of the mind. And, like, the fact is, like, and what we're ultimately going to try and convey here is that can completely go away. I've driven on 295 North a billion times since then. Gone to New Jersey, driven through Camden. No, I didn't, like, drive through the hood because I had no reason to, but done all. I've gone to plenty of concerts in Camden since then. Never had to run off and, like, hide from my wife and, like, run off and get any drugs or anything. So it's been a non-issue. And I don't think, I'm going to let you guys talk, but I don't think a lot of society knows this about recovery sometimes. I think they think we need to be shielded from temptation and so on. So I don't know. What else do you guys got?
I think I did great. That's a phenomenal lead in with, or just all of it, Corey, because I agree. I think we can go anywhere and do anything as long as we're spiritually fit, right? We can go to all those concerts. We can travel. We were talking not long ago, my honeymoon, there was hard liquor on tap in the resort hotel room. Like, I never ran into that when I was drinking, you know what I mean? Like, never, but it was just on tap. So yeah. And it wasn't even, it legitimately never crossed my mind. And to Bill's point, I can't sit here and say that every now and then watching a movie, hearing a song, like the thing with cigarettes, that still crops up every now and then for me. It's like, I smell it outside and I'm like, oh, that smells good. And I have that brief moment, but never have I been anywhere near yielding. And there is not a situation on this earth that I don't believe that I could enter into with God as my captain and me as the co-pilot, which that's an important, right? I'm not the captain, right? He's the captain. I'm the co-pilot. But I also know that my God is not going to ask me to go anywhere. Not that it would be like, I do think there are situations that were going to be difficult that I might have to encounter, and I have to bone up on my prayer life before I enter them or whatever. But he's never, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's never going to go there's never going to be a situation that I have to feel like I'm at, which is going to legitimately be a dangerous situation because, I don't know if I'm conveying that properly, but it becomes we live a life of freedom. We live a life of freedom. So.
Well, I think to circle back around to the original question, are triggers real? And I would say again, absolutely yes, 100%. And it's when my internal condition is jacked. And I like the analogy that Bill brought up because it's the most classic example, the Pavlov's dogs thing. I know that a lot of people in some way, shape, or form have gone to a treatment center, gone to a detox, gone to a hospital, and had a spiritual awakening right then and there, and were lifted of it. That wasn't my experience. And matter of fact, I was clinging to the idea the whole time that while I was in treatment is I know heroin's bad, okay, but I was still clinging to the idea well, I just got carried away. I got really carried away and crazy stuff happened. And it led me here, and so maybe I won't do heroin anymore, but I drink. That's what I do. I drink. I could smoke a little weed, no big deal. And, I had that idea sitting in the back of my head. And, so if we want to sit here and ask, did drug and alcohol.
Uh-oh.
The cocaine gods got him.
I was in there, but, coming out of it, yeah, I was still very, very sick, and with that Pavlov's dogs kind of analogy, I can remember taking a job in a restaurant very shortly leaving treatment. And, my first night working in this restaurant, not only did they give shift beers, they called them, right? Good old shift beer. But then they pulled us all into the back room because I just so happened to start on that restaurant's 5th anniversary. And so the owner was there and he poured shots for everybody. And I didn't even have one in my hand. And I was nervous. I could taste the alcohol in the back of my throat. I mean, it was almost like an out of body experience for me. And I still to this day say God's real just for that, dude. Cause I did not pick up that drink and I didn't take it. And for me, that just didn't compute. I would always take the shot. I'd always take 6, if they were given to me, for sure. And I remember, I've talked about this before, but I came home that night. I was a wreck. I was living in the sober living community. Bill was the manager. And I was a wreck that night. I couldn't sleep. I was coming unglued out of my skin because I just didn't know what to do. And, thankfully, Bill and some other good people were around and put me in the right direction. But things like that, those triggers are absolutely real. We can find any number of them in any one of them, but it's when my internal condition is jacked up, maybe I notice those things a little bit more, or if
I'm susceptible to them a little more.
Susceptible to them. Yeah. And when I'm watching certain things again, like you were talking about, I remember the first time in sobriety, I watched Requiem for a Dream.
I was just thinking about that.
And I'd seen it before, but it took on a whole nother connotation, because again, I felt sick to my stomach almost. And it wasn't because I wanted to get high. It was because damn, I've lived that. I've seen those people. I know some of those people a little bit more intimately now through the recovery process. And man, my heart goes out to it. It's almost emotional watching that shit now because it's man, I know what that's like, So, it gives us, we get the grace that we're, like Corey was saying, we're able to see the blessings and say a little prayer on the spot. But, another thing too is with, again, the word triggers or whatever you want to call it. I recognize when stuff isn't going right in my life now and I start to get a little, maybe I'm a little bit short with my girlfriend or with her son or with my family or whatever. And, or I'll come off the, with some snarky ass comment or something like that. And that's when I realized, like, again, like, okay, my internal conditions a little, I'm off the beam a little bit and I got to get back on. So I'm not necessarily like triggered to go out and get high or drunk, but it's like, I know that this isn't me. This isn't the person that I am on a daily. And I gotta do what I gotta do to get back on, whether it's prayer, meditation, getting out, helping somebody else, whatever the case may be. So
that's good stuff, guys. Corey, that was very insightful. Do you have something you wanted to add, Bill? I was going to kick it to you next, Bill, anyways, to kind of bring up the next mini topic that you put in the chat, if you want to.
Yeah, I just wanted to expound.
Yeah.
Greg definitely nailed it. But I was thinking about it too. When you're new, I mean, if you picture an iceberg and you only see the tip of an iceberg, that's really what your conscious mind is. Everything in your subconscious mind is really what controls that compulsion. So that's why it may seem like your body, like, how did I end up in the liquor store? You know what I mean? Your subconscious mind got you there, buddy. Like how do you pass a lie detector test, or me, so many times I don't want to get high again. I didn't, but my subconscious mind always brought me back because I knew the quick release of the dopamine that I could get. So that's why in recovery circles, we say, get in the middle of the crowd, stick to the middle of the herd, so that hopefully by the time your ass starts wearing out towards the outside of the crowd, like what Greg was saying, you have that consciousness to say no. Because when Greg told me that story, I love him for making it through that. But I'm like, chances are scant that most people are not drinking at that job within a week, So, and then quickly on the other topic is we were talking about therapists before, and my thinking on this has kind of evolved. But more harm than good early in recovery. And I think that these days, it's funny to me that the same regulatory bodies that started out with these good intentions are these people, as we know in recovery, our program works when it's one recovery person speaking to another. It's people who do not understand recovery. They think that a pacifying program with chemical side piece, chemicals and a lot of therapy is going to save you. And that's, unfortunately, I want to bring it up because from what I've heard from people in the industry recently is that's moving more and more into the forefront, to the point now that halfway houses and these other launching pads, like what really got me sober, like, are requiring those places to accept the Suboxones and the other things that are not good. Ketamine, Suboxone, they're not good for somebody early in recovery. I don't care who it is. You know what I mean? I don't think it's good for someone late, but definitely not something someone should be playing around with early in recovery. And therapists, how many times do they say it's like your triggers? It's like your triggers and triggers. And I bought that shit, and I don't really think it was my triggers. It was my internal condition of wanting the nugget, the carrot at the end of the rope. So I'll pass it to you guys on that.
Let me be real quick on this one, because that's a conversation that we could rehash and get into, and I think it would be a very good conversation for a future topic. But I want to answer the original question, Bill, because I thought it was a great question about therapists, more harm than good. I never went to treatment, so please keep that in mind with this answer. And if you guys differ, that's fine. I think that my freedom has come completely and solely from a spiritual way of living. I found that spiritual way of living through the recovery program that I've been a part of for 14 plus years, and the God that I built a relationship with. Plain and simple, hands down, nothing else. I think that therapy can be beneficial if you have a therapist that either understands addiction, has been through it, is like in recovery themselves, and more importantly, in recovery through a recovery program, not necessarily the psychological treatment aspect of recovery, which I do understand people get and stay sober that way, or they at least understand that part. Like they are siphoning you off to these recovery programs. They're not necessarily saying, stay here, IOP, 5 days a week. This is how it's got to be done. We're going to talk about triggers, do some art therapy and equine therapy. I understand those things have their place and their benefits, but in terms of lasting long-term, as our book calls it, permanent recovery or permanent sobriety. I think if you don't have a professional, a healthcare professional pointing you in the direction of those type of recovery programs, the ones that we favor, I think it can be dangerous.
Yeah, well said.
All right. So okay, yeah. So my opinion on what like a good therapist would be for like somebody that is entering recovery, like Sean said, except a little different. I want them to be in recovery. I do have sympathy and like a bit of gratitude for the person who like just wanted to go into the recovery field and went to college and
wants to help people.
That's great.
Yeah, go into child welfare.
Yeah, damn it. No, whatever. Like maybe they have a loved one that suffers and they want to. I mean, I've met people like that, and I think they're good people for doing it. And I don't necessarily. I can't even sit here and actually say like that they should do something else with their lives because I'm gonna do what makes me happy, right? But
I'm
what?
Sorry. No, I just feel like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
yeah, okay.
Sorry, but yeah, I don't mean to interrupt, but yeah,
no doubt. But the person that's going to be the most effective is in recovery themselves, I think. And dude, it's as simple, in my opinion, in my experience, it's just as simple as like I'm not going to listen to the person that's not in recovery. Mm-hmm. It's not their fault; it's mine. I can't seem to fully trust that person. Not with my secrets, but just like you don't know where I've been. You don't know what it's like to tell myself I'm not getting high anymore and then doing it an hour later.
Right.
Like you need to understand that insanity. And I've had dude, the first IOP program I was in, it was way like court ordered and everything. And everybody was in there trying to stay out of jail. And we're going around talking about whatever, and some wise ass says to the counselor, like, well, let's hear your story. And she's like, what story? And he's like, I don't know. Like, what were you on? And she was like, oh, well, I'm not an addict. And he literally said, and he was right. He was a dickhead, but he was right. He was like, well, then why should we even listen to you?
Yeah.
And he said,
wasn't that always your first? Like you did a lot of treatments. Wasn't that like always like your first thought or question to the therapist? Like I'd always be like, "So are you in recovery?" You know.
I don't think I asked them really. I don't remember necessarily. I do know that I had some that were and some that weren't. Mm-hmm. My first therapist here in Florida was considering himself in recovery. I don't know what that looked like necessarily, but I can tell you that. And this is why I say this stuff, dude. He told me that after 5 years of after 5 years of complete abstinence, that I would probably be okay smoking weed and drinking occasionally. And he was so serious about that. He had it written up on the fucking whiteboard and everything. The tiers of whatever
drug use that you can bring back in your
literally.
Life. By year 20, you could be smoking crack again with the band. I'm telling you, Corey.
Right. So, and like, what will that work for somebody? Yes, it will. There is somebody out there that is going to go back to just using weed or drinking moderately or something. They're not like us. They're not.
I was just going to say they're not the real deal then.
Right. They're not the type of drug addict and or alcoholic that we're talking about. That information would have killed me. Luckily, I somehow had been through this enough to, like, as a 19-year-old me was like, that's
like,
not.
I don't know if that's true.
I think that's
Corey,
wrong. But
on that note, like, not everyone there is there because they are fully chronic, and maybe they get the help
you
they
got some
need.
hard drinkers there.
I think that's
the poo-poo guys. Like
the greatest benefit of treatment, though, is like we've talked about, is because if you can go to a treatment center for 30, 60, 90 days, come out of it and just be fine.
Right.
Awesome, dude. Because now you have to go through a lot of the work and stuff that the rest of us had to do. So it's better. You're better off with it. You know,
some of our literature says, other methods had failed. Right. So like sometimes the other method is going to treatment a couple times or what. Like I said, I went to treatment 4 times. Sean, you went none. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is. And whenever we get to like where we got to and we come to understand our condition the way we understand it, and for anybody that's listening, we've outlined it plenty of times, but you can definitely go to like the first 14 episodes and figure it out. But, whatever it takes, I guess. But like after like a couple treatment centers, like I had to start looking at the, complete abstinence, deal or whatever, and like just trying something different altogether and taking some sober people's advice, right? Like actual people that had done this before. And I did have a therapist that subscribed to this way of life and sought God and helped others and everything. And man, she helped me a lot, dude. She helped me a lot because we were talking the same language, and that was really nice. I also had they got rid of her, of course. They fucking fired her. I'm dropping some F-bombs tonight. They fired her, and then they had me switch over to some other girl that's like, okay, Corey, you're discharging soon. What's going to be your relapse prevention plan? And I said, okay, I got it now. This is the first time I ever put one together. It's going to be God and helping others and, whatever, and so on. And she was like, no, but really? And I was like, what do you want me to say? Like, she's like, well, you're going to need a job. And I'm like, yeah, I need that anyway. Like, that's not part of my, right. I'm not going to rely
on her. Without her, you couldn't safely smoke weed anymore.
That's true. If she had it her way, I'd been relying on Stuart Bull for my recovery. And I don't know, that place might have hurt it, honestly, but, I don't know. I could go off about this, but good. I mean, like it's circumstantial. It's very circumstantial.
Bill, to answer your question, do they do more harm than good? I think yes. On the whole, on the macro conversation, they do more harm than good. Case in point, Corey's therapist that told him after 5 years he can smoke crack freely.
Well, let's hear from Greg
that's all. I just wanted to answer the question.
No,
yes,
I'm just saying I'm interested to hear from Greg because he's seen a lot of treatments and an overview of treatments. So I'm interested to hear what Greg's perspective is.
I would have to disagree with you on that one, Sean. I think the macro level. Now, if we want to talk about just therapists in recovery,
well, that's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's what I'm not gonna say yes or no to that, but I think therapists and the mental health profession as a whole does a lot of good. And there's a hell of a lot of people in this country, not just addicts and alcoholics, that desperately need that mental health treatment. So
I agree. Yep.
I will say this. I don't show up to the hospital with cancer and demand my doctor also have cancer in order to look at me, right? So there is something to be said about that. However,
fair point.
I was lucky enough that, well, let me start with this. When I was like 16, my sister was like 14. Mama Suzanne knew that we were some fucked up kids, that there was something going on, right? And so she got us involved with a church pastor, and we went to counseling. And my sister let some stuff out. I didn't trust that dude at all. I wanted no part of anything he was dishing out, and I lied to him the entire time, right? So again, if you do find yourself in front of a therapist, word of the wise, if you're honest with them, good things might be able to come of it. I was not. For those of I mean, I know you guys do, but like for a lot of people,
damn it,
some pretty horrific abuse, some physical, some certainly mental, and some sexual abuse at the hands of somebody that was close to us. And that was a huge corroding thread of my life. It did not cause my alcoholism and drug addiction, but it was certainly a catalyst to a lot of stuff. It certainly didn't help this big, huge hole that I had inside me that I needed to fill with stuff. And it allowed me to be hateful and resentful for the entirety of my teenage years, my early adult years, and everything like that. When I got to therapy, I was just lucky enough that I got put with a therapist that was a recovered drug addict and alcoholic. And very much like we try to do in recovery is we don't sit here and make excuses. Oh, you have a disease, you poor little thing, you know. No, it was okay, cool. That shit happened to you. I'm really sorry. That's horrific that happened to a kid. You're 32 years old now. You know, we're talking about something that happened 20 years ago. Are you ready to be done with it? You ready to leave it behind, or do you want to let it keep killing you? Right. And that dude specialized in a type of therapy called psychodrama, which was really cool. I won't go into all the ins and outs of it, but it was very much what I needed, right? And it had to do a lot with like small group role play where we really had to like trust each other and kind of like, you know, the term safe space before that was a thing or whatever, but like we had to trust one another that we were gonna help each other. And this dude, I mean, I have nothing but good things to say about this man. A lot of you guys know who I'm talking about, and man, what is just an amazing human, but a phenomenal therapist, and really helped me work through, not work all the way through. I still had to talk to my mentor about this stuff and really process a lot of things in my head and in my heart. But it started that ball rolling, and without that, I don't know if I could. Certainly I couldn't get up in front of a room of people and talk about how I was molested and beat the shit out of when I was a kid. But I don't know if I'd feel comfortable doing it to talking about that with a guy that I'd only known for a couple months either, you know, even though the whole scope of our program is to be open and honest. You know, if we want to be free of these things, it's like that thing. And this is going to sound even crazier, but I know some of us can get it. Some of that was like so helpful to me, that hate, and that was holding on to that for years. It was like a safety net for me, right? Like I could, you know, keep that one thing inside me and use it. So whether it's I got to like take out a guy on the football field, or whether I got to do what I got to do to power through my day, or whatever the case may be, like holding on to that hate sometimes felt good, and it felt, you know, like it would get me through. So having to get rid of all that, man, I don't know if I could have done that without some great help from a wonderful therapist. So that was just my particular story. But again, he was a recovered alcoholic and addict. He knew what it was like.
He spoke your language.
Exactly. And he knew what it was like to have what we have, and everything that comes along with it. So, you know, but I do tend to agree with you guys. Like, I think that, it's something that, you know, should be happening, and we should do that. However, there is the business aspect of the whole running of treatment centers and facilities, and that it's, you know, they want the clinical program. That's what the insurance pays for, and that's what keeps the bills and the lights on, you know.
Let me just say something too, right? Because you brought up a bunch of good points, and I just want to say it quickly. And Corey spoke about how I actually never really thought about how people in treatment, like some of them might not need the level of care that I did. Like, I guess I just always viewed it as like, if you're in here, you're chronic and you just suck like me. Or, you know, at that time, I never really thought about it. And if, like you said, Greg, if it works, it works. And it's not so much, because I think a lot of times me, especially early and for a long time, put the face of the anger was towards the face of the therapist. It's not the therapist. It's the people teaching the therapist. Because at this point in time, Janine probably would be more qualified from listening to us to working with like a chronic alcoholic as a therapist than an actual therapist, because they don't ever do a rough draft or exercise involving a chronic alcoholic. You know what I mean? So they're just looking at it like in this one nugget of this, and then they're going, oh, and then this many people don't die from Suboxone. Well, that's, you know,
let's
that's
use
our
that
algorithm.
tactic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's not a knock to them. It's not a knock to them. I'm just saying they're more harm out of not knowing that they don't know, or, you know what I mean? In my opinion, and there's a lot of context But you guys brought up a lot of good
and also to your point, we are severely over medicated as a society, and certainly
that's a whole episode.
Now that's seeping into the recovery community, as we all know, that's dangerous because guys like me don't need any more things to set the ball rolling. You know.
And a whole nother episode too, but like, mushrooms are next. They're going to bring those back out for therapy and this. Like, we could talk about it for a whole hour.
I'm in, Bill.
But these are things that they're going to start reintroducing.
You and your boy A-Rod can go on an ayahuasca trip, Bill.
Dude, that's how you win Super Bowls.
So I think, first off, Corey and Bill, great, just great questions, great conversation pieces. As always, when we kind of, there's something to be said for having a very small kind of general idea of what we want to talk about and then just letting it take shape naturally, because that was just awesome on everybody's end. Definitely we could go further into it. I want to just shout out our producer, Janine, because she's talked about some of her history that she's had, not necessarily with drugs and alcohol before, but she mentioned in the chat that, it's hard to find, a good therapist that has, an experience with what she needs and what she's gone through. And she made a great point to Greg, as much as Greg made the point about the I don't demand my doctor have cancer. She made the point that cancer is not an addiction. So it's just interesting. We can look at these things. If recovery's taught us, and I think I can speak for all of us with this, if recovery's taught us anything, and we know it's taught us a lot, it's we can look at things in different layers and different perspectives. And our perspective 5 years ago, 10 years ago, last year, it's okay for our minds to change, and it's okay for our experience to dictate how we feel about certain things. So good stuff, guys.
Corey, text me your first therapist's phone number after the show, please.
Yeah, I've been trying to get him to put that shit in writing for a long time, dude.
With that, next week we have a guest, and the week after that we are doing a deep dive topic. So more will be revealed. Don't forget, tune in. Shout out to our listeners. Please like, follow, share on all socials at Trudge Report Pod. Email us at trudgereportpod@yahoo.com. Send in your mailbag requests for topics, questions, and comments, or anything you want to yell at Corey. Remember, we are all here if anyone wants to talk about recovery and our experience, or if you are struggling with some form of addiction. Thank you again to Janine and Stella Vic's podcast management. Good night, God bless, and may you trudge the road of happy destiny. We will see you next week.